Looking for a cosmic adventure like no other? Zatswan, Multiversal Guardian is a high-stakes comic book journey through the multiverse with stunning art and an unforgettable hero. Get your copy today in ebook and paperback formats. Link in the description.
Hi everybody, this is Neil Allen, the creator of Zatswan Multiversal Guardian, the 130-page cosmic fantasy graphic novel that you can purchase on Amazon in the link below in ebook and paperback format, free with Kindle Unlimited. And today I wanted to hop on to give my thoughts about Green Lantern Corps 2025 number 9. And I'm going to just cut to the chase. This is a pretty bad comic book. Most of the stuff going on in it is not worth talking about at all. The only thing that I really care about is there is no Green Lantern and Hawkgirl in it, and I have some things to say about that. And speaking of that, I've already kind of spoiled a bit. There will be spoilers in this. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be like giving a big, like long deep dive of this comic book. I doubt it because like I said, most of it isn't worth talking about. It's essentially a Jeff Johns light comic book, and this is exactly the type of stuff I feel that Green Lantern needs to get away from, which is this mini Jeff Johns type of stuff. How many times have we seen this sort of scenario before where the Green Lantern Corps is on Oa. There are a bunch of other colored lanterns too. They're fighting a bunch of people on Oa. Oa's about to get destroyed. There's a bunch of chaos and fights that are like a big giant rumble that's hard to follow with a whole bunch of characters. It's just, I've seen this so many times by now, and this one's not helped by having like lame villains. Starbreaker, who I guess is like an emotional vampire, and he wants to eat all the emotional energy from the central power batteries that are gathered on Oa. And I don't know, none of this to me is really worth talking about. So I'm just kind of glazing over it. John Stewart died in this month's Green Lantern comic book, which I made a video about that. And he actually died, by the way. He died by igniting the power batteries, the central power batteries of all the various corps after they lost energy. And so at the end of this comic book, the Green Lanterns win. I don't even think it's important enough to talk too much about how they win. And they, John, the only thing of any real interest to me, at least in this comic book, is that John's old power ring goes off to the dark sectors to find the other John Stewart that we left off in the Emerald Knight comic book, like a Jeffrey Thorne comic book, and Jeffrey Thorne's Green Lantern run, and his I think the comic was called Emerald Knight. It was like a one-shot comic book that finished up Jeffrey Thorne's comic book run. It's revealed that John Stewart separated, like there were two John Stewarts before John Stewart died in this month's issue of Green Lantern. So as I predicted, that John Stewart I don't think is going to be coming back. There is another John Stewart out there, and it's looking like we will now be following this other John Stewart that we left off in the Jeffrey Thorne comic books. And so that's pretty predictable. The only thing that's interesting here is that he is with Katma, who seems to have a robotic leg, and they're just farmers. And it's not clear if John has his Godstorm power still. He's looking like he may not, but he may. So I actually have quite a bit to say about this. This is the interesting stuff here. First of all, don't be duped by a Kat Matui appearance. I've seen this before. We saw it at the end of Mosaic where Katma comes back, but somehow she goes away again. Now, I'm not convinced that Katma will completely return here. I'm really not convinced about that, and honestly, I can't really fist pump or celebrate a Kat Matui return at this moment. So this doesn't necessarily excite me, and the reasons for that are that it goes back to Mosaic as well, so I do have some things to talk about here. The reasons for that are, why am I going to celebrate a Kat Matui return when you were gassing people up about John Stewart and Hawkwoman earlier in this series? So the only reason I would be like excited about Katma coming back is if I didn't like John Stewart with Hawkwoman. That's like the only reason, and those people are definitely out there, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of them. Easily John Stewart's best love interest is Hawkgirl, without a shadow of a doubt. I know that there are people who want to like keep that from happening, but if DC really wanted to, they could have another Green Arrow and Black Canary type of pairing on their hands, where, you know, the characters go very, very well together. When you think of one, you think of the other. DC very well could have had that, and can still have that if they choose to go that route, but there are many other parties involved who would hate to see that happen. So that's what's getting in the way of Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. There's like quite a bit. But if DC wanted to have that, to me it's kind of interesting. Because it's like, you actually do have that. I've said in previous videos that Green Lantern and Hawkgirl is probably one of the top 3 or 4 DC romances. And I do actually mean that. It's all right there. The thing about it, though, is DC is very tepid and very cautious about capitalizing on that. That's the only thing that keeps Green Lantern and Hawkgirl like held back. There are literally people like holding it back. And I think that's a terrible shame. Because again, you're not going to be able to stomp that out. I don't think you will, because it's too loved. Because it's actually that good of a romance. But still, the only thing holding it back is that there is a contingent of people who really, really hate it, really, really fear it, really, really don't want to see it. See, the interesting thing about like couples like Lois and Clark, for example, they don't have that type of resistance. Yes, there are Superman, Wonder Woman shippers out there, but still, you know, I would say that resistance isn't there for that type of relationship, or Bruce and Selena. When it comes to Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, the only problem it faces are these people. You know what I mean? If they either got out the way or weren't considered, like if DC didn't like kowtow to them, then yeah, Green Lantern and Hawkgirl would be even more of a juggernaut than it already is. So what I'm saying here is like, no, I can't really celebrate a Katma return because you've already gassed me up about Green Lantern and Hawkwoman / Hawkgirl. So no, not terribly like enthused to see her. See, this reminds me of Green Lantern Mosaic, actually. So the ultimate thing that happens in Green Lantern Mosaic is that Kat Matui returns. That's like John Stewart's reward for going through all the stuff in the Mosaic world. Katma returns. But as a consequence of that, his love interest in Mosaic is completely, mercilessly cast aside, shunted aside. That is Rose Lewis Harden, by the way. I made a fan art, like a quick, it was just nothing too fancy, a quick doodly fan art of John and Rose that you can find on my channel. If you look, like I'm actually doing a speed paint of it. Okay, so here's my problem with that. In all this Mosaic story, you built a relationship with John and Rose Hardin. Okay, that's what, and I thought Gerard Jones actually did it quite well. Now I'm supposed to be happy that this character, Kat Matui, who more or less wasn't really in the story all that much, comes back, and the woman who's been with John this whole time gets cast aside. I'm supposed to cheer that? Like, it doesn't work that way. That's just kind of stupid writing. Because the reader likely is invested in the Rose Hardin relationship, not the Kat Matui relationship at that point. The Kat Matui relationship happened in a whole other comic, Green Lantern Volume 2, whereas the Rose Hardin relationship is going on in Green Lantern Volume 3 and also Green Lantern Mosaic. Green Lantern Volume 3, that being the 1990 series. So, the people who are reading Mosaic are invested in John and Rose. They're not as invested in John and Kat because that happened years ago at that point in a whole other comic. So to think that bringing Kat Matui back and kicking Rose, to the curb is going to excite the reader, that's just like foolishness. So I'm talking about that because I feel a similar situation is going on here. Should DC actually move forward with John and Katma, which I'm not convinced that DC will. Okay, you're gassing up people about John Stewart and Hawkgirl / Hawkwoman, which is his most beloved romance beyond a shadow of a doubt, and Hawkgirl's most beloved romance beyond a shadow of a doubt. And now you're throwing that away, seemingly, and you're bringing in John with Kat Matui. No, it doesn't work like that. It only works for people who don't like John Stewart with Hawkgirl. And again, granted, those people are out there, but what I'm getting at here is like, what are you doing, DC? Jeremy Adams, Morgan Hampton. This isn't how it works. So here's the problem. Kat Matui coming back would work well and get readers excited if you weren't dangling Hawkgirl in front of those readers' noses just earlier in this series. Okay, so you were teasing readers with that beloved pairing. Now you've had plenty of time and you haven't done anything with it. Seemingly not following up with that pairing. Actually, you crushed it because you killed the version of John Stewart that had that adventure with Hawkwoman. So you've crushed it, and now you're introducing a John Stewart with a whole other woman. Don't care that this is his quote-unquote classic traditional love interest. The problem is you're building an expectation, putting a tease in front of readers about another thing that they love that they've been waiting like 20 years for, not following up with that, and now throwing this at them. No, that doesn't work. And this is coming from a person who really does like Kat Matui. But I would say this only works if you don't like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. People have been waiting like 20 years to see that in comics. They finally get it. Then you don't follow up on it. You crush it. And then you throw this at them. This isn't going to get readers excited. Now, that said, I recognize that these are monthly comic books and the story's not done, so we'll have to see where things go from here. Like I said, I'm not completely convinced that DC's going to move forward with a John Stewart being with a Katma who is missing a leg. I'm not convinced of that. This can, much like Green Lantern Mosaic, this situation can get ripped from him again, and Katma can go right back into hyper time or wherever she came from. And the interesting thing about that is that, weirdly, I wouldn't even mind that because, again, you were teasing Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, and I'm invested in that. This is a whole other thing. If you hadn't like dangled that in front of fans before, I would have perhaps been more excited about seeing Katma, but now it's just a monkey wrench in the way of what I actually do want to see. So we'll see how things go. But regardless of all of that, I do think it is a problem. Like, even if DC does not go with John Stewart and Katma, I think regardless, it's a problem that you've gone this long without following up on that hot girl thing at all, and now the John that she was involved, that she had that last interaction with, is gone completely. I don't know. I think I see what DC might want to be doing. So I think they just want a regular John Stewart in a regular status quo. He'll probably go back to his more traditional suit, or maybe another one, that kind of Green Lantern War Journal one, I suspect will go away. And I think this is a reason why we haven't seen John Stewart images of him on comic covers or any of the solicitations, because I think he'll look different. It's my hope he will lose the facial hair, because I've never been a fan of that on John Stewart. Yeah, I think they kind of want a more basic status quo. He probably will, because like I said, I'm guessing DC wants a more basic status quo John Stewart, and not this ultra powered John Stewart, not this situation where there are two John Stewarts, but just John Stewart, the Green Lantern with the power ring. And I think they want that because James Gunn, the movie director and mastermind behind the DCU, the new movie and TV universe, has plans for John Stewart, and they kind of want to get John Stewart in line with that. Now, again, it is my hope that those plans include a John Stewart and Hawkgirl relationship, which there is a possibility of. That's not completely out of the question. This one splash page at the end of this near worthless Green Lantern Corps comic, it isn't completely telling of where things are going. I think it's an interesting thing, though. But here's my message to DC and Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams and James Gunn and all these people. You just need to give these fans what they want. You need to stop doing these teases like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. You need to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. You need to stop waiting like a year to do it. You had her fly off into space with some giant planet-sized hot god. You have to follow up on that story, and you should follow up on that story in the book in which it happened, which is Green Lantern Corps. I would say already you're already in a problem because you've waited too long to follow up on that. You've been doing everything else but that. Focusing on Teen Lantern, focusing on, John Stewart dying and John Stewart's dead sister and now Catman. No, you need to focus on Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. And I will just say this at the point. You're dealing with a reader here, me, who is like, you gotta prove yourself to me. Like, I do pop in and read this comic when it interests me, but I wouldn't call myself a regular reader because of stuff like this comic here. Most of the time, it isn't anything I want to see. It seems to be following trend with that. Weirdly, the stuff I want to see is the stuff they tease at you but don't want to do. And these days, I don't fall for that. I don't buy comic books for just an appearance or something. Like, oh my, yeah, there was a time back a long time ago during the Jeff Johns years where I was like, oh my God, John Stewart's actually appearing in a comic for once. I better show up and buy that and maybe buy 2 or 3 copies. No, I don't do that anymore. That's a stupid thing to do. That's not the right thing to do. I will show up and be a regular patron if they actually give me what I want to see. They don't seem to want to do that, which is cool. I could always work on my own comic books, like I said in another video. And yeah, it's kind of wake me up when we get back to John Stewart and Hawkgirl. If we're not getting back to that, I kind of don't even care. Because at this point, if you want to, like I was saying before, if you want to get me and people like me, which I recognize there are people who are not like me, but if you want to get people like me reading your comics again and invested in your stuff, you're just going to have to give us exactly what we want. And the thing is, that sounds demanding and everything, I'm sure. It's not really a demand, as I've mentioned in another video, my last Green Lantern review video. It's just kind of a statement of fact. Now, you can not do that, and that's fine, but if you want to get people like me on board, that's what you're going to have to do. And another thing, too, yeah, that's just kind of what it is, and I'm not going to show up just for John Stewart appearances. Like, you're going to actually need to, like, give me what I want. And the thing about it is, it's not demanding because we are not asking for a lot. We are not asking for anything out of the ordinary. We're not asking for anything weird. We just want John Stewart's most popular romance to be reflected and shown and in the comic books that we read. Why is that such? Why is that like the hardest thing ever for DC Comics to do? It's kind of ridiculous. Now, we've seen it in DC's animation projects recently, like Beware My Power, Crisis on Infinite Earths, things like that. Just import it in the comics. Yes, they're going to, and you should probably do it in the movies too, like the Hawkgirl actress wants. I have a whole other video on that as well. What you're taking way too, if you're going to do that. So this is basically what it's like for me in this Green Lantern Corps comic. I'm not that comic fan from like years and years ago. Basically, you need to stop pussyfooting around. It's like poop or get off the pot, as they say. Do the Green Lantern and Hawkgirl thing and do it really, 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 really fast because you're already way behind on that. Or just whatever. You know what I mean? Like, why did you do that opening storyline if you weren't going to, do it? But instead you're focusing on stupid stuff like Dead Sisters, Teen Lanterns, and like this Starbreaker stuff, which is very lame. So what else is lame about this comic book is that John Stewart, the other version of John Stewart who died, sacrificed himself to essentially resurrect the ultra lame Jeff Johns emotional spectrum. I think that there's something a little to me, and I know this is probably just me, and I know I don't own these characters, like John Stewart doesn't belong to me, but there's something kind of, what's the proper word? For me at least, there's something a bit profane, grotesque, like blasphemous perhaps, about John Stewart sacrificing himself to resurrect Jeff Johns' lame emotional spectrum concept. Think about that. John Stewart, who Jeff Johns showed no appreciation, no care for at all, sacrifices him, bootlick sacrifice. It seems like a move of John Stewart being that bootlick in Green Lantern Rebirth, where he's just kind of like the cheerleader for Hal Jordan. There's something kind of not right about that, I'll say, and that's kind of how I feel about this. Anyway, Fernando Passarin is doing the artwork. I'm taking a look at it now. Some of his figures are weird and blocky. I'm looking at a Sinestro that's saying, "Fear us, fear our wrath." So Passarin is like, I find that he can do very good on scenery. like spaceships and cityscapes and things like that. His actual work on people I've never liked. They're beady-eyed. They all have kind of the same face with these beady eyes and, you know, big lips and stuff like that. Not he's not terribly fond of the art here, though I recognize he was doing a lot of stuff. There are a lot of figures here, a lot of characters, a lot going on. See, I'm looking at this figure here of a Hal Jordan where he's saying, "Yeah, you're right, Lantern Corps. Let's do our thing, indigo, blue, and green defensive shield." It's kind of a blocky looking figure, not very aesthetic looking. Um, yeah, he's long been associated with Green Lantern Corps comic books, but he was never my favorite. Sometimes he does a really good job, depending on what he's drawing, but usually not people. Usually, those are my opinions at least. Um, but the writing was very bad and very bland as well. We see that Razor goes back to being a... See, this is what I don't get. You got all this Aya and Razor all over the place, but we can't get any John Stewart and Hawkgirl, which is about a gajillion times more popular than this. What are these writers thinking? They're literally crazy. This is the thing. No matter how you cut it, you've already screwed up. Because even if you are going to do Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, you've dragged this out at this point way too long, I would say. You needed to have followed up on that a lot sooner. But instead, they're doing this dumb storyline. Doing Teen Lantern, my goodness. Something here happens with Krona. I don't know that he'll be coming back. I think maybe some kind of way he was just used for the Guardians to get their memories back. I don't know. Maybe they'll do something with him. We'll see. But the way that these guys are writing this, it's kind of like I had reservations about them bringing Krona back that I expressed in my other video about Green Lantern, about when John Stewart was dying. I mean, look at how they did this event with these lame villains. You know, if they brought Krona back, it wouldn't be that great. So here's what I'm kind of thinking about this. I'm going to be kind of candid with you. I don't think this series has ever been that great. Even the opening arc, I don't think was that great. I think it excited people, including myself, and I did enjoy it because it incorporated a relationship that I've been waiting to see in comics forever, that was from another medium, a cartoon show that I wanted to see. But it was still marred by things like Sorrow Lantern and things like that. You know what I mean? I'm seeing the writing in this comic here, and it just seems like the lamest. It's like a Jeff Johns comic. It's like a weak, pathetic Jeff Johns comic. It's not even now. These sorts of Jeff Johns comics I'm already not a fan of, but this is like the weakest one. It's like one of those, but dialed even way down. And that's not good. I think because the problem you're facing is your Starbreaker villain, just not a compelling villain. I'm sorry. These guys just did not do him justice. At least Jeff Johns would give you, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't great either. First Lantern was a really, really lame villain. But this Starbreaker's a really, really, probably not as bad as first, maybe about as bad. But that's what this comic seems like. Not much to see here. The only thing of any interest is the final page that has John and Kat Matui in it. And that's not exciting to me either. So what do I think about this whole thing with killing that John Stewart, the other version of John Stewart that we had been reading off, and then bringing this one in? Um, I don't know. Like, I understand that some people have complaints like, you just threw away all the development he got from War Journal and, the development and interactions he got from this series. And now we're going to follow a whole other version of John Stewart. I kind of see that. Like, what was the point of all of that? Yeah, I do understand that point. We'll see where this goes. I'm like, my interest is going down, 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 down. They're going to have to do something and do something really fast to turn this around for me. And they're going to have to like do something I'm going to like, because as it is now, they just finished up a really lame crossover with a really lame villain and a really lame conclusion, and killed a version of John Stewart that we had been following this whole time. It makes you wonder, what was the point of that hot girl interaction if you're just going to kill that John Stewart off and pick things up with another one? I don't know. Like, we have to remember too that these are ongoing comics. The story's not done, and that's kind of the point of them. They're supposed to get us to talk and wonder where things are going to go. The thing about there is a difference though. I think, and I do want DC and all the people involved with this comic book to understand this. You have some fans here that are only hanging on by a thread. If you don't do something they're going to like, they're going to bounce. And, you can't like tease them, do these, teases, and then not do anything with them. That's just going to piss people off, and John Stewart fans, believe me, have a long history of being dissatisfied. Not because they're unreasonable, but because the company, DC Comics, never seems to want to do anything that many of them would actually enjoy. And it seems we're still doing the same thing. Cool, you have John Stewart, but you're dangling Hawkgirl in front of me, and instead you're giving me Teen Lantern and a dead sister. Listen, that doesn't cut it. You're going to actually have to give people what they want. Now, I understand that's divisive, but you also have to understand that's what people are interested in. That's what gets people to talk. And a lot of people want to see Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and have waited way too long for it already. Way too long. So we'll see what they do. I'm barely hanging on. We'll see what happens next month, though, and I will give my thoughts on Green Lantern and or Green Lantern Corps when if there are any new developments with those. But be sure to check out my own comic, Zatswan Multiversal Guardian, in the link in the description. And I will talk to all of you again very soon. Take care.